Beyond Fossil Fuels, Pathways for Clean Energy Transition. And this is the second roundtable discussion of the day that is focused on clean cooking solutions. Since we have the new audience joining us for this session, in the first half, we have extensively discussed how Pakistan can further accelerate its goal for SDG 7, that is securing access to clean, reliable energy. But our main focus was on the repurposing of the coal-fired power plants in Pakistan, where SDPI has presented it in its study. And the whole overall roundtable, it's actually happening through a joint project that we're doing in collaboration with Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, ESCAP. We had Michael joining us in the person, but as of now, we're very pleased to have with us both Ms. Anis Zaman as well as Ms. Fadia from ESCAP. Along with the other speakers, as we go along the session, I'll be introducing them as well. But just to kind of set the scene, let me again also take the opportunity of having Shah Jahan Saab in the room with us, that almost it's been now 4 years since, in collaboration with ESCAP, at that time, the Private Power Infrastructure Board was the official government entity that initiated the process of developing Pakistan's SDG 7 roadmap. And I think if we kind of look at what the situation of energy access, considering the electricity access as well as clean cooking, the situation that we actually had back in 2022, and now what we actually have in 2026, that's quite a lot significantly different. The Pakistan's energy sector is actually transformed in a number of ways. Mainly, and I think the major shift that kind of came was because of such a high rapid uptake of solar PV in Pakistan, that not just kind of created a case for kind of socio-economic uplift of the communities, but it also kind of provided that economic leverage for Pakistan to perhaps early transition or shift away from its fossil fuel resources. And again, once again, thanks to the support of ESCAP and also the political as well as the government counterparts in Pakistan, the energy sector has actually seen a number of advances across multiple fronts. Again, most importantly, one of the very key development has been Pakistan's solar PV uptake. If I just kind of look at the numbers, we have actually imported over 55 gigawatt of solar PV capacity in Pakistan, and some of the studies indicate that even if you kind of just look at the off-grid installation numbers, they even goes somewhere from the range of 28 to even up to 33 gigawatts. Now, what this development has actually done on multiple fronts, that along with, again, just the solar uptake, it has also provided a very strong market to some of the solar compatible solutions, such as clean cooking, e-stoves, solar stoves as well. It was, again, Pakistan is known as one of the stories that because of this solar uptake, it was against a very strong hedge for Pakistan, given its vulnerability to fossil fuels and the electricity spike that the energy prices spike that we see during the recent geopolitical turmoil. So this uptake has actually provided Pakistan with that necessary shield. And again, one of the reasons why this trend kind of continues, and now beyond the solar PV, you're already seeing the trend in the electric vehicles. You're already seeing the trend in the what you say, kind of the uptake of battery energy storage systems in Pakistan. And now what we're here for today is that because now we're also kind of seeing how this trend is also coming in the areas of clean cooking in Pakistan as well. So, but again, just again, very quick setting, what as we're going to do is that in collaboration with ESCAP, we initiated this project on clean cooking, particularly focusing on the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and that was actually one of the recommendations coming out from the SDG 7 roadmap. But before I go into any of the details, let me firstly invite Mr. Anis Zaman from Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific to set the scene, and Anis would be highlighting the importance of clean cooking, mainly its linkages to the SDG 7, and how ESCAP is supporting clean cooking across this region, some of the key takeaways that we've actually seen from different countries, and how regional cooperation can also support the goal of achieving universal access. So with this, thank you so much, Anis, for joining us. And with this, I'll hand it over to you.
If you allow me, I have a couple of slides, if I can share them.
Yes, if I'll request MIS team to please allow Anish to share the screen. Yeah. Yes, Anish, it's all set. You can perhaps share screen from your.
Thank you. I hope you can see my screen.
It's coming. Yeah, it's all clear. Please go ahead.
All right, thanks very much. And good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. And before I begin, I also must say that the first session was really wonderful. I have seen the engaging discussion by everyone, and thanks to all the speakers who really shared their knowledges and recommendations and suggestions. So on behalf of ESCAP, it's a really great pleasure for me to welcome to this particular session on clean cooking. And I also must say that it has been a great pleasure working with SDPI for over many years now. And as Ubaid has mentioned, that we have jointly produced a lot of good works. So I'll just take you through a couple of slides just to set the scene. To start with, let us think about why we focus on clean cooking. I think many of you would be thinking that clean cooking is rather an unusual topic because it's cooking is done traditionally and there is no point of discussing this, but it isn't actually. Clean cooking, rather, it's quite an important topic for several reasons. Let me start with saying about the SDGs, and you probably very well know that UN SDGs have been really founded on the theme that is leaving no one behind. And if we think about the clean cooking and how it links to this LNOB, we can see that the bulk of the population who do not have access to clean cooking, they live in a very low socioeconomic condition. And we can also say that they are actually disadvantaged. What it means that if we are doing a development without considering them, without really addressing their challenges, we would be having a development which will leave someone behind. So we don't want to do that. Coming to the indoor air pollution that is caused by polluted cooking technologies and fuels, there is a huge amount of health impacts from there. We can talk about the severe diseases that it creates. And also, even some cases that have been reported and there have been analyses saying that there are premature deaths occurring from this indoor air pollution. We can talk about gender as well, because women and children, they are being impacted the most because they are exposed to this indoor air pollution the highest. There is also loss of productivity if you look at this in some way. And substantial amount of his time is spent by women or men, whoever it is, a family member, and these small householders are spending time in fuel collection. So that means this time could have been actually spent on productivity, which is being lost. If we think about the policy environment around clean cooking, we can see that historically, there is no policy or low policy focus on clean cooking. And this is because clean cooking is not seen by the government as really an important element in the policy. But this needs to change. On the other hand, if we think about the energy perspective or environment perspective, we can see that if we transition to a cleaner fuel system, it will increase the energy efficiency, which is very important for energy transition. It also is a safe environment because it has low or no fire hazard, and also it reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Now, if we just dive into what's happening in the Asia Pacific region, of course, we know that clean cooking is a global challenge. But if we look into this region, we see that the problem is even more acute. in a sense that if we can give you some numbers, in 2021, over 1 billion of people in Asia Pacific region did not have access to clean cooking. And what is more surprising is that about 3/4 of these people live in only 6 countries, and that also includes Pakistan. ESCAP has been working with many of these countries, and as Ubaid mentioned, that we actually start with developing SDG 7 roadmap, and the roadmaps help us to identify the problem. They analyze the problem in the context of the country and offer practical and implementable recommendations to address those challenges. And what we're seeing these days from the ESCAP side, many countries are coming forward. The number of countries requesting ESCAP to support clean cooking is really increasing. So there is a kind of momentum that has been built on clean cooking. Some of the initiatives that ESCAP has been doing on clean cooking, we started this program basically in 2022 after developing a couple of roadmaps by then. And we have started and expanded this clean cooking initiative in Bhutan, Fiji, Laopedia, Nepal, and we can't just have done in Pakistan. And we also are progressing with Tajikistan now. What we would like to achieve with this support is to build capacity of policymakers and in general, or other stakeholders as well, with a technological assessment, demonstration of identified and appropriate technology in the country. We also support identifying the supply chain, establishing after-sales service, and also just exploring financing opportunities. This way, we also create a platform to share knowledge and experience and best practices across not only countries, but also regions and sub-regions. ESCAP very well understands that this is a very severe topic, and this is a very important topic, and not that ESCAP has all the expertise or knowledge. So what we do, we actually develop collaborations with different global regional institutes to really leverage their knowledge and skills and pass them on to the countries that are working on clean cooking. And those couple of those institutions I can name is Modern Energy Cooking Services. We also work with ADB, Global Cooking Alliance, Sustainable Energy for All, and I think Michael also mentioned in the morning is that Global Electric Cooking Coalition, in which ESCAP is a member. And also we work with China Alliance for Clean Stoves. What has been observation and lessons from all these countries that we have worked with? We have seen that awareness is really low among all these people who do not have access to clean cooking. So we need to really increase the awareness. And people are really thinking, as we see that traditionally cooking is being done, so there is no need to change anything. But the impact, severe impact of polluted cooking system, we need to let them know and make sure that the government is also aware of this. Electric cooking is being encouraged and have been tested to be feasible in many countries, particularly where there is reliable and affordable electricity supply. And that's because by doing electric cooking or using electric cooking stoves, we can increase the energy efficiency significantly. And just to give you a context is that induction type electric cooking stoves is about 90%, is up to 90% efficient, whereas the traditional cooking system is probably close to 10 to 20% efficient. So by just switching to this, we significantly increase the energy efficiency of our system. However, if we want to really nationally roll out or really scale it up, of course, there is a
Hi, Anis, your voice is breaking up. Yeah, at the moment we cannot actually hear you. You may please try turning off the camera if that's possible, please. Anis, you're on mute. Yeah.
Did I lose connection?
Yes, that was a disconnection. If you could just reshare the screen. Yeah.
So do you know where I lost the connection? Shall I
Yes,
go back to?
you were in the financing side. Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't miss much.
Yeah.
All right. So what I was saying that there are financing opportunities that we would be able to tap into to really finance the national rollout or scaling up clean cooking in countries. One of them being is the eligibility of clean cooking projects for carbon credits. That means that we can seek carbon markets opportunity to finance this kind of projects. The other one being is the collaboration under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. And from under this particular item, we can actually seek other countries' support who is willing to support or would like to buy carbon credits from countries. So we can use that opportunity as well. The other or the final observation that I would like to mention is about the after-sale service. For any technologies, if we would like to think about the sustainability, we must ensure that after-sale service is there and it is strong enough to support the sustainability of the product. Okay, now coming to this particular project. So why we started this project, as Ubaid mentioned at the beginning, is that SDG 7 roadmap for Pakistan actually was developed in 2023. And that actually highlighted the need for prioritizing clean cooking in Pakistan. And that's because we understood that the access to clean cooking in Pakistan was very low. In 2021, less than 50% people had access to clean cooking. And we also projected that under the current policy scenario, this access rate will be increased to less than 60%, and that will leave 18.3 million households, which is, if I remember correctly, about more than close to 100 million people will be left without access. So that is why the recommendation was very strong. And we also recommended to use induction type electric cooking stove. And recommendation was based on the annualized cost of different technologies that was estimated over about 10 years time. And we saw that the electric cooking stove actually was the lowest one at $162 per year, whereas natural gas was $166 and LPG was even more expensive, $208 per year. The choice of this Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was because it was one of the lowest access to clean cooking, and that was been chosen for a test case. I think I'm sure our colleagues will be talking about more details about the project in here. So just finishing with the regional collaboration, how it can help accelerate clean cooking. Regional partnerships can actually accelerate innovation. They can draw innovation, reduce cost, and ensure inclusive energy access for everyone. And also, what regional collaboration can really do is to foster knowledge sharing and mobilizing investments in clean cooking technologies. And this can also help countries to develop supportive policies, harmonize standards, And also the other thing is that it can keep the scale of economies to reduce the cost of different technologies, particularly for this kind of technology where the upfront cost is really high. So that way, it's very beneficial, and also by doing the regional collaboration, we can explore financing opportunities much better to help support national rollout or scaling up the technology.
Dr. Rehab Khalid. She's a senior research associate at MEX program at Loughborough University, and will shortly also be both SCAP and P&D department was e-cooking strategies for households in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and households, but they were kind of scattered all across the province. Beyond that, we actually did another roundtable discussion and consultative discussion with the private sector players. With then kind of tells us how the if they cook a single food with different fuel sources, such as we'll show you the different kind of fuels that we kind of cook within the experimentation, but what are the different economics, what are the different socials, and again, it's a really interesting document. It also kind of provides you a number of recipes that you can kind of use to cook different kind of foods. So we'll show you some of the foods that we cooked as well. And again, the whole idea behind is to kind of provide a very easy to understandable comparative assessment that exists between different fuels. The last document that we actually developed under this project is the Clean Cooking Diaries. So Clean Cooking Diaries basically, because within this project, we actually imported almost 10 different induction stoves that were sent to us by the SCAM. It were V3.0 of eCook. And we kind of provided those stoves to the communities. And in return of them, there was actually an experiment that is designed by MEX, which will shortly explain what that is. But then we kind of recorded the different stories of communities that cook different kind of foods within those through those appliances. So that is again a document that kind of shows the user experiences as well as their stories. So let's kind of start very briefly with describing what the overview of clean cooking within the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province looks like. So that is kind of the what you say screenshot of what is the current excess. So we all have been discussing that if you look at the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the excess of electricity, even in overall Pakistan, has again reached roughly around 97.6%. But that is if you kind of consider the tier 0 electricity, and which means basically the excess of any kind of electricity source may be solar standalone systems to the household. So if you look at this is again as per the highest, if you look at the overall Pakistan's number, that is somewhere around like 97.6. And if you look at the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the number currently stands at 81.4%. So in the terms of electricity excess, there is again a room of for improvement within Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And though again, even Pakistan has made substantial progress, the access to clean cooking still is limited. So as per the highest data, the percentage of households with clean cooking fuel used for cooking is currently at 47%. And if you look at the same number for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, that is currently at 33%, which you can also see on the left side that 82% access is there in the urban side, while the 24% is on the rural side. And then again, there's again a 4% gap that I'll very shortly come to. And also to mention the total percentage of households with clean fuels used for all of the key appliances such as cooking, lighting, and heating in the province is even much lower. That is currently at 18% as compared to the 33% excess of the normal fuel. So that's again a very quick background. So what you can already see is a lot of difference exists of where the access to electricity stands and where the access to clean cooking technologies stand. So what we kind of did is this is kind of the design, firstly for the technical study that we looked, where we kind of covered almost 201 households within the province. These are some of the districts which we major districts that we visited. They were mainly in the province of in the district of Chitral, Jagur, Rabat, Shumum Khan, Daneen, etc. For each of the households, there was a very detailed, dedicated survey that was actually designed. Again, in the survey, we actually asked them about the household profiles and energy supplies, cooking practices and use of different fuels and technologies, market access and supply chain availability, monthly expenses and energy utilization for clean fuels. I'll just take perhaps like 3 minutes to tell you some of the key figures that we actually have here today. So of all the households that we visited, so there are two things. One is that what is basically the primary fuel that any of the household is using. And then there is the different type of fuels, because I mean, there's a primary fuel, and then once that fuel is not available, the houses kind of shift to any of the secondary fuels. So even as of now, almost 82% of households within the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are still relying, not this covered sample, not the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province on its own. The covered households, the 82%, they're still relying on firewood as their primary fuel. While the remaining 80% rely either on LPG, and a very few, perhaps it was just a single household that actually had an induction or electric stove within them. But there was also again a disparity that exists based upon the income quintiles. Households with higher income definitely and the higher education level have comparatively a higher percentage of LPG use as a primary fuel as compared to much lower total average of roughly 18%. Going forward, this is the different kind of stoves that those households are currently being using. You can already see that still the clay stoves, almost 60% of households have been using those, followed very closely by the traditional open fire or the 3-4 stone stoves, LPG stoves. Some you're still using the metal stoves, or perhaps it was 2 households that have been using the electric stove. But even this is not the primary fuel. So another thing that we actually looked at was that despite high reliance on fuel wood, 76% of the households do the cooking with inside their house, even if they're kind of using wood burning as well. Because the main reason is that the women are mainly cooking in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So that's again is actually one of the very key challenges. Then you can already see some of the key highlights, such as the average daily meals. Most of these households were making meals 3 times a day. Their average spending roughly 5.5 hours the women are spending just for the cooking. And again, on the right side, you can actually see some of the stoves that are commonly being used. That is the clay stoves, traditional open fire, LPG stoves, metal steel stoves, as well as some of the electric stoves. Now, these are some of the key foods that are commonly cooked in the province. And we've also kind of mapped down, this is again based upon the survey, and we've also kind of mapped down what are the temperature or the energy consumption requirements of most of these foods. I mean, and the reason kind of mapping is that because in the following sections, what we actually had to do, we actually had to try cooking these foods through the use of induction stoves and kind of try mapping what economics and how the economics and the energy consumption patterns vary. So you can already see different food categories. There's rice, there's roti, tandoori roti, the meat curry, different kind of curries, teas very commonly consumed, bread, pulses, and some of the dairy products. And these are the common appliances that were present in most of the households, ranging from tawa, saucepan, frying pan, pressure cooker as well. Now, just to mention, I think this is something that is constantly was highlighted during the consultative session as well, that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province is particularly known for its food culture, and anything going beyond the cultural practices, again, it's a taboo that really needs a lot of strong discourse to change. I'll kind of explain how that goes. And just very briefly highlighting some of the key common challenges that most of these people mentioned were around the time burden, that is the time that is consumed, the very high cost that is resulting mainly, the high cost was mainly coming in the provinces, that the households that were relying on LPG. Then the smoke and health effects, fuel availability, appliance malfunctioning, some of the cultural norms as well. So yeah, moving forward, these are some of the awareness of households for different clean cooking solutions. And we also kind of tried map that if the e-stove or electric or the clean cooking solutions are made available, how many of those think that they'll be able to, they'll be willing to make a transition away from the wood. And you can actually see that a lot were willing. A lot didn't actually had the answer, because a lot of the respondents didn't actually had the idea. You can already see in the left graph of what these stoves, type stoves are. So yeah, going forward, these are some of the very key enablers from the very first study that we actually thought would be there. That is the fuel supply chain and market accessibility, affordability and financing mechanisms, the need for improvement of community awareness, gender inclusion, energy accessibility and reliability, and locally adapted solar design. So now this was kind of what we actually did in the baseline study that was entirely based upon the initial household survey that was conducted. And again, very thankful we already have Farhana with us. She was the key resource person who kind of conducted that study. Now, based upon that study or the baseline design, this is the next document that we actually formulated. That is the e-cookbook. And what I'm going to do is that very briefly present what its key analysis is. So e-cookbooks also kind of followed it's more of a laboratory style testing that follows a protocol that is designed by modern electric cooking services, that is MEX. Under this protocol, we actually have to test different fuels under a controlled environment. Each food is cooked almost roughly 3 times on single appliances, and the total number of appliances on which this food can be cooked were tested. So for each of the food items I'm going to show you next, we actually had to cook it almost roughly like 18 to 24 times. And we eventually had to see the average of the key readings that are coming up. And those appliances, just because the cooking was actually experimentation, or the overall project is for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we actually hired cooks that were already had the idea of how to make different recipes, how to cook different kind of foods, and all of those cooks were from actually the same province. So again, we can always discuss the methodology in further details, and these were the key dishes that we cooked during the phase of the survey. The cooking was actually done in Sawabi, and we actually made doodh patti, chapati, mixed vegetable, beef curry, and finally the boiled rice. Again, won't be taking you again through the process for testing, but there's again a lot of data collection was there, cooking process was there, and along with just the energy consumption and the economics, we also had a very detailed discussion and data collection on how the cooks actually think that the food made from different fuel sources tastes like. For example, how does a karahi made from wood taste different to the karahi made from either the induction stove or using the LPG? Yes, again, just showing some of the pictures. I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to make tea in this room, but yeah, just again, just if you want to know what are some of the very common ingredients that we actually used and the weight of sample that we actually did, I'm definitely not gonna go into the recipes of, but again, the second food was chapati. The third, again, I've shown all of them together. This is chapati, this is the meat curry, this is a vegetable curry, then there is boiled rice, and within the e-cookbook, it actually contains a lot of different recipes that we actually use to make those foods, and it kind of provides a step-by-step operational procedure that if you have to make any of these recipes using any of the appliances, for example, it could be cooking them on wood, cooking them on induction stove, cooking them on LPG stove, what is the process that you actually have to follow? But given the condition that each food cooked using any of the source must have same weight of different ingredients, it must follow a similar strategy, it must follow the similar recipe. So that was the underlying assumption that we actually had to take. I'm now just gonna stop here because this is again the key most important slide, this because it kind of shows on average any food that made through different sources. For example, on the left side, let's kind of start by discussing how the doodh patti. On the left side, you can see 3 different fuels. On the top left, it is induction stove using a steel handi. Then it is an induction stove, which is basically a patili we use to make tea. Then you can also see the tea was also made using the steel kettle, and same appliances were used, same cooking appliances were used, but using different fuels, such as the same appliance and the recipe was used after the induction stove for cooking through wood, and then for cooking through LPG. Now, what I'm gonna kind of do is shortly tell you what exactly were some of the differences that we kind of observed, mainly within the energy and cost analysis. So again, starting initially from the Doodh Patti. So the induction stove, electric induction stove, kind of emerged as the most efficient technology overall compared to induction. LPG was about, in making tea, it was about 12.4 times more expensive and roughly took twice as long to bring the tea to a boil. Wood, although definitely it's the cheapest fuel in terms of direct cost, but it still consumed roughly 3.5 times more than the induction and almost 2 times the time that is required on an LPG cylinder. So one likely reason was comparatively lower efficiency of LPG was the waste of heat that actually happens when the flames is escaping on along the sides of the pot rather than directly transferring heat to it. So that is actually one of the reason why the timing of the LPG stoves was higher than the induction stove. And the second trend I'm going to kind of try to highlight here is the choice of cooking appliance. That actually mattered a lot, and it actually played a very critical role. On the induction stove, using a kettle reduced both the cooking time and energy used compared to a steel handi, and that is again a trend that was common for all of the three baseline fuels. Mainly it also had a thicker base of the kettle that does not significantly affect heat transfer in induction stoves, but it does slow down heat transfer from open flames on wood and LPG stoves as well. Now, although wood does appear to be the cheapest option for most of the people in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it's even available without any cost. Induction is very close at roughly PKR 2.9 to 3.1, and one sample that we actually used was equal to 3 cups of tea. For this very small additional cost, induction saves kind of between 12 and 14 minutes of cooking time per cup, making it kind of a more practical choice for households where time and convenience matters alongside the cost. The second one is even more interesting because that is where you kind of start seeing the opposite trend. Because if you kind of look at the chapati, again, one thing, and everyone understands there, a roti or chapati in Pakistan, I would say it's not even just perhaps cultural, it even has a very strong what you say kind of social acceptance within the households, especially in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and all across Pakistan. We actually don't do any compromise on the way or the shape how the roti looks like. Now this was actually making chapati using induction stove was actually the one major barrier we still think exists before the induction stoves come in, because the way the induction stove works is that the food actually the appliance actually has to come in direct contact with the induction stove, and again the electricity conduction happens, so it doesn't actually distributes the heat uniformly across the overall plate of the appliance, and hence the way the roti or a chapati generally inflates while you're cooking it on either the wood or while you're cooking it on LPG, it doesn't inflate pretty much the same way. So the shape of the chapati, the face of it, or the way it is kind of a lot uneven, it is not actually acceptable to the people of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So that's one very single element that, as of now, induction stove, unless you kind of use any plate between the two, which kind of distributes the heat uniformly, until that is used, induction stove were not a very recommended technology coming up while we were making chapati. And again, the point about adding metallic plate between both is that eventually it is going to consume more energy as compared to the previous one. I'll just
cost energy जो आप use कर रहे हैं, this is what price to come up with
roughly at, yes, it's the unit price of electricity is taken as 50.2. Yeah. So now going forward, but as far as if you kind of consider the time, the least amount was still coming up from the induction stove. It kind of cooks a lot faster than LPG, then followed by the wood stove. And again, just remember that during the wood, we have also counted the time that is actually required to lit up the wood as well. And that's again significantly higher. So again, coming on the social angle, the cooks as well as the food tasters, they weren't actually really too much of the view that the taste of the roti or a chapati made through induction stove was not as good as compared to the taste that was there for the case of wood as well as the LPG cylinder. Coming for the beef curry, again, a lot of differences in price were actually seen. For beef, cooking time across all of the three fuels was nearly similar, ranging from almost 58 minutes to 1 hour and 13 minutes. The induction stove was the fastest choice, followed by LPG at 1 hour and wood at 1 hour, 8 to 13 minutes. And unlike Doodh Patti or the tea, where induction was significantly faster than other fuels, the time average shrinks considerably for slow cooked dishes like beef curry, since most of the cooking time is spent simmering the meat at low to medium heat rather than at high initial speed stage where efficiency differences are most visible. So you can already see the difference that is kind of coming up in cooking them as well. So now I won't be going telling you the details of each of the dish. I'll perhaps leave it over here. And any food that kind of involves oil that is being made, for example, beef curry, it could be the vegetable curry, or if any of the kind of liquid is present between the appliance and the induction stove, that food was comparatively cooked much faster and more efficiently, and it almost tasted the same with induction stove as when you kind of compare it with other stoves. So, I mean, the same trend that was observed in the beef curry was also observed in the vegetable curry. So, just kind of providing a summary of how it looks like. If we kind of take an average, would kind of consume 5 to 14 times more energy than induction across all dishes. For example, 23 megajoule versus 2.6 megajoule for beef curry, as most of the heat actually escapes into the air. But definitely wood doesn't cost anything to most of the households. To some of the households, it is being sold as almost like 2,500 to 1,000 rupees for ton. So there is some cost that is associated with it. Induction consistently use the least heat, with its advantage largest for short high heat tasks like tea, and narrow for slower cooked rices. The main challenges which we still think exist if you talk about induction stoves comes in the form of market access, because many of you already know that you cannot use a common appliances that is present in each household on an induction stove, because it actually needs an appliance that is made from a conducting metal, ferrous metal, that can actually allow the electricity to pass from. If it is not that compatible, the induction stove won't operate on those appliances. So, and the presence of those, particularly in the rural residencies, is one of the very major challenges that currently exist. The second thing is, again, the cultural and the social barrier that we actually talked about, that needs to be bridged before high scale adoption. So again, from the clean cooking, I won't be taking time on the clean cooking diaries, but for the clean cooking e-cookbook, that is kind of the very key summary points. After that, what we actually did was we distributed the stoves that we actually have after laboratory testing to the communities, and we asked them to try using those induction stoves, and then let us know or provide them as the stories that how was their experience using those stoves. And this experiment was actually done in 3 stages because we actually wanted to see the transition. The first phase was basically that we actually allowed them to, in the first phase, they actually had to cook any food that they actually want using the baseline fuels. For example, if their household had LPG as the primary fuel, if their household had wood as the primary fuel, they cook and take the readings such as energy consumption, such as the taste of the food, such as the time that was required using the baseline fuel. So that experimentation went on for 2 weeks. In the next phase, they actually had to just use an induction stove. So the households were actually requested that no other fuel choice can actually be made using those 2 weeks. For example, they actually just had to use induction stoves. And in the last 2 weeks, we actually provided them a completely open choice. For example, both the baseline fuel as well as the induction fuels were made available to them, and they actually had to decide which technology do they actually want to use for cooking which kind of appliance. So that was almost an 8-week experiment that we actually did. This is perhaps the second last slide I'll kind of show, which is again, if you have to read the stories, it's much better to listen to the narratives that they actually have made. So what I'm going to do is perhaps just present a summary of what those stories look like. So a lot of, again, many of the participants who use induction stoves mentioned that it is very easy to use. There's a lot of protection of utensils because the utensils don't actually blacken out. for fear of the new technology and transitioning from traditional practices, that is still a challenge that persists. And the second last is the limited access of electricity. One thing that actually happened is that this experiment actually happened when the world was actually going through that regional turmoil. And during that, electricity shortfall in Pakistan has actually increased. So that was actually one of the challenges that participants had to face, especially during the second phase. And the last is the limitation of using specific utensils that I already mentioned. So I'll just kind of stop from here to kind of provide some of the questions that we'll be taking forward. One is, again, if the clean cooking access is to be scaled up, there is a kind of a need for mainstreaming clean cooking in energy planning of Pakistan specifically, because you can already see off-grid systems as well as battery energy storage systems coming into the official integrated energy planning. This is something that really needs to be made a part of any of the key documents, including the power sector expansion plan, energy efficient policies. I already know that Nika is working a lot on it. Pakistan's NDCs already had a very strong say on it. But again, we kind of need to even improve the discourse around it further. Again, Pakistan is already going through a solar PV momentum. What is kind of needed is to pair that with the country's growing solar and battery energy storage market, and come up with solar and electric hybrid solutions for the clean cooking as well. Anis had already mentioned the green financing. Perhaps beyond the carbon markets or the carbon trading schemes, you also need to look into some of the concessional financing schemes, perhaps from the commercial banks as well as the microfinancing institutions. Again, one point is that if you look at the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it's the women that is eventually doing this cooking. So you really need to integrate that, Jesse, that gender equity, social inclusion within the planning process, because without that, you actually won't be addressing the stakeholder that is at the very front of the whole debate that we actually have been talking about. Last but not the least, we really need to scale the community-rooted awareness, and the capacity is eventually the key component coming up. So I'll kind of stop here, Umair, if you could kind of stop the share screening. Again, these documents would be available for you. We have kind of tried to provide a quick summary, but I think with this, we'll come to the speakers that we actually already have on board. And I believe Dr. Jamshed from Nika already has his hand up. So Dr. Jamshed, so thank you so much for joining us. We can perhaps start from you if you already have some interventions on questions to raise, and then I'll come to Irfan Saab and other colleagues as well. So Dr. Jamshed, over to you.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Ubaid. Thank you, SDPI and UNESCAPE for this detailed and insightful study. I will start my discussion with a few questions from the project team who conducted the study. Like, based on the study and based on the observation, what you are suggesting to the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, that what type of projects can they design to mainstream the electric cooking, and what type of support from government they will need. For example, if you provided the stove like in free, if you provide them like through public financing, what could be the structure? If it is like private and public partnership, what could be the structure? So what is your take on it? That what type of initiatives government of KP based on the study can provide, can design for the masses?
Ji, thank you, Dr. Jamshed. Dr. Saab has not joined, but we do have Safdar Hayat Saab with us. Safdar Saab, since it's mainly something that is more focused on the government part, if you have any thing you would like to respond to this, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ubaid. Thank you, SDPI and ESCAPE, once again for bringing the stakeholder and experts on an area for discussion which is of paramount importance in recent era. Presently, what we are talking about, the clean cooking, it's not a clean cooking solution, but it has got broader perspective as well. What I've seen from your slides that you have conducted the survey in the rural areas of the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which I think should be the most targeted area for the current scenario, because the supply chain issues exist there, and the indigenous available firewood is used easily and conveniently for two purposes: one for heating, and the other is cooking. So specifically, the government of KP may include this as a priority area for the rural areas. For that, I think the National Energy Efficiency and Conservative Authority can play their role while framing such policies that can be implemented. Actually, the implementation is the main barrier. Technology is there, but for that we need a policy curve, first of all, in consultation with the federal government. And then it comes the efficient appliances, and community awareness is the most important thing. That community shall be aware of the use of this. As we saw from your slides, that the induction stove has got is better than the LPG, as well as if you compare it with the wood fire. So main hurdle is the policy coverage. For that, the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa specifically frame such policies to target the areas, specifically the rural areas.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sabda Hayat Sab. Dr. Jamshed, I think if Dr. Sham joins back, I'll revert that question to him again as well. But I mean, during the discussion, the projects that came up was one of the previous projects that was happening. Actually, that was a kind of, again, also a distribution of plain cooking stoves across the province. That was by USAID. So that's, again, one of the key projects. And I mean, exactly, I cannot name the projects that the government, but I'll definitely check back and check with him and get back to you on this one. But taking the discussion.
Thank you, Ubaid Saab. Thank you.
Thank you. Just taking lead Sabda Saab, apart from this question, if you have any other insights or suggestions you would like to make, like if we actually have to increase the market access, particularly within the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, are there any suggestions from your end on the areas that we really need to work up around?
Actually, what we see, Ubaid Saab, there is a transition of energy. We know that the distributed solar has did wonders in the recent past decade, and already it has happened that the distributed solar we see in every rooftop. But we need to such like events maybe conducted specifically in the government of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to at least some awareness in the people for the market accessibility. And for that, I have already mentioned that NECA can play, and we don't have Provincial Energy Efficiency Conservation Authority. For that, the Electric Inspectorate, working under the Administrative Department, Energy and Power Department, they can have discussion with the federal government, such like NECA, and they can frame the workshop all over the KP, and they can do the awareness for the community and market accessibility.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sabda Saab. Let me firstly come to...
Thank you, Sabda Saab. I think Ubaid Saab, responding to the Sabda Saab's comment, as far as NECA is concerned, at NECA, we are in negotiation with the Asian Development Bank for a quite significant amount of money. And we have also proposed that the e-cooking, especially e-cooking and clean cooking, must also be added to those initiatives. So we are working on that. Along with that, we are also designing some framework that like each provincial need is different. And we try to design some customized policy framework that how the potential, like in Punjab, we can tap up the solar PV, and KP, we can come up with some credit like electricity credit, for example. If those who are using it, they can get some credit in the form of like electricity. So we are designing different customized solutions for different areas, and we are also talking to donors, because at current fiscal space. We don't have like the financial support from government, but we are trying our level best to push it the best possible within the available resources, and we are creating room from for external financing as well. Along with that, we are also moving to the policy regime, the regulatory regime. Like in Pakistan, currently, we don't have any standardization for cooking stove and cooking appliances. So in next stage, like to regulating the market, we can move to introduce minimum energy performance standard for cooking stove for all cooking stove. And along with this, we can also introduce the minimum energy performance standard for cooking appliances as well. So NICA is working within the available human resources, financial resources. We are trying our level best to come up with some initiatives on this, and this is also a part of our different partnership initiatives. We are providing like the technical assistance input to SDPI and their such initiatives and studies. So we are trying our level best to create room for some interventions.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamshed, for bringing those in, and again, really commendable efforts. So, with this, let me firstly request to Irfan Siddiqui Saab from the Planning Ministry. And sir, again, along with your overall reflections or any thoughts around the subject of today's discussion, if you could also perhaps see if the government of Pakistan, particularly the Planning Ministry, is planning some initiatives or doing some developments around the clean cooking side as well, because we all know that integrated energy planning was again one of the very key initiatives that the Planning Ministry was previously handling. It later kind of just recently passed over to PPMC as a research arm. But if you have any points to respond on this one as well.
Thank you very much, Obad, and all the audience for giving me the time. So I think first, to be honest, I am not very expert on clean cooking, but I have a personal experience that when we moved to US, my wife used to complain a lot कि ये जी बिजली के चूल्हों पे खाना पकाना बड़ा मुश्किल है. So I'm talking about US, and we are talking about rural areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So it's going to be a challenge. First, I want to get to what Anis Saab said, that why this has not been prioritized in policy making and all that, right? So I think the bigger focus, you all understand that our energy bill is heavily dependent on very expensive imported fuel, right? 16, 20 billion. Out of that, almost 80% is spent on transport. Okay? So a lot of focus is on a big ticket items where country can save and make a difference for everybody. Right? That's why you'll see the focus on EV transition, you'll see focus on BESS, you will focus these kind of technologies which are going to make a bigger impact. And these smaller projects, I think they are more, I'm very glad KPK representation is there. So it is more of a provincial level thing. So I think this is, but as Anisa, so this is, I think, one of the reason why this has not been prioritized in the policy making so far about access to clean cooking. Regarding the work, I think there's been a lot of hard work done by the team in coming up the recommendation and the study they have conducted around e-cooking. So I give a lot of credit to them and for coming up with this initiative. But having said that, I have a couple of things to, listening to Bad and Anisab also, I have a couple of points to make here, right? One is, right now when we are talking about switching from e-cooking, clean cooking in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we are mostly talking about converting from wood fire appliances to right. So in fact, if you look at a fuel saving, there's no fuel saving side of it, right? So there's an environmental saving definitely, because you're going to reduce the carbon emissions and all that. So I think somewhere in the study you might have quantified, but if you can quantify that also, that how much saving which these households can give, then you can seriously evaluate that what kind of a green financing or international a bigger scale of this project. So I think this is, I didn't see in the presentation, maybe you have done it, but if you have not done it, then please incorporate it, right? The most important thing in every, in every change is a behavior, right? How are you going to change the behavior of the people, right? In rural areas of all over Pakistan, irrespective of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, same as Punjab and Sindh and all that, it is very difficult for them to leave their practices, right? They are so used to this cooking that it will be very, and especially the literacy rate is also very low. No matter how many books you can make and how much you can educate them, it is, as they say, if you want somebody to understand the thing, you have to tell him 7 different times, 7 different ways. Only then he can understand, right? So that kind of a push education and, continuous drilling needs to be done for people, especially, the women. As he said, they do inside because, parda and all that. So there's a lot of tradition around that. And again, plus there's a cost of change. I think that also need to be covered here, because if you want to go to e-cooking, then you need to have a solar and then you need to have a stove, right? So how much that would cost for average household? We also have to understand that, solar in some part of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, probably at night it will not be available anywhere, where most of the people are gathered for the feast, right? And 3 to 4 months, the solar would be very weak due to the weather and all that, the winters and everything, right? So this also would be because you can't give them a recipe or a solution which will be, a part of a solution, not a full solution. That half a day they have to use the wood and half a day they have to use the stove, right? So I think that is again a very important part which you need to incorporate in the study, right? So I talk about the green financing. So I asked, before I came here, I asked that if I can talk beyond, clean cooking, and if you very kindly, give me the permission to talk about. So I want to talk about a little bit bigger picture about energy, because Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is here also. I have been with the oil and gas industries for 35 years. I recently, about 1.5 years ago, I joined Ministry of Planning, mostly outside the country with Schlumberger, Halliburton, Baker Hughes. So, so oil is never going to go away. It will always be a hybrid solution. This is where the world has come to conclusion, right? So I think we have to find the ways where how we can best utilize our energy. As I told you, 80% of our $16 billion of energy bill, 80% of that goes to the transport sector, more than 80% of that. And during current crisis, and this is 25% to 30% of our national budget, right? And during current crisis, if this would have prolonged, probably it would have been 60, 70%, and our economy would have crippled. Right? That's why there's so much focus. So what I want from my side for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa planning and energy, that please look at the projects. I give you example of 2 or 3 projects which really fascinated me. One is a used oil project which is set up with the collaboration of IFC and Asian Development Bank, where in Lahore they're collecting all the used cooking oil and they're converting into jet fuel. And they already have an offtake agreement with Shell for the jet fuel, right? Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was going through the web, and I found out around 68,000 tons of used cooking oil is in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So you don't have to go to the extent of jet fuel. You can use that cooking oil to make, fuel oil, and that can save a lot of money, and a lot of household can be provided with that kind of energy. In one of the graphs which you guys were showing, there was, second was biomass, right? Cow dung, which was used for. So, biogas project have the quite a few biogas projects which have been done with Dutch and other countries in Punjab and other places. Take a lesson learned from that. That is one of the ways to put up a small community-based biogas plants, where they can use the cow dung and all that to convert it into energy, right? Without asking them to shift from one source to another. So that is something else you can do. Similarly, the hydro has a lot of potential. I know in Gilgit-Baltistan area, a lot of people have set up, these small run-of-the-river hotels are, using, complementing their electric source by using where they take this water, put a compressor and generate the electricity. In urban areas, in a bigger city, like because you need a gravity and all that, you can mandate the builders to have this. They always build these water towers for water supply, which are usually very high, which can provide. So put a turbine and generate electricity for that area, right? So these are the things where I recently work on Prime Minister initiative for converting the 2-3 wheelers into electric, basically. I was, Pakistan total fleet is 40 million. Out of that is 30 million is 2 to 3 wheelers. I am pretty sure 20 to 25% of that would be in KPK, right? So retrofit cost is not much. You can look at that initiative. We have done that for Prime Minister. We can share for you also that you retrofit your existing fleet of 2 and 3 wheelers and convert them to e-bikes. How much environmental benefit, how much fuel you would be saving for the country is immense, right? And how many jobs you are going to create. So, these are, 2, 3, 4 big ticket items, I think, which this group has a lot of capacity. They have, a lot of brain power. They have a lot of initiative, young minds and all that. They need to look at it that, our solution, honestly, today is not in smaller things. We are at the crossroads where we have to do something big to get out of this energy mess we have. Because, our energy prices are going out of control. Our economy is shrinking. Our energy cost is going high. Exports are going down and all that. So that's why it is very good to have that initiative of, but, scale it up into a bigger project where you can look at it. And, one of the things it was interesting for me, it was the cooking time between the stove and the. So why not come up with a hybrid solution? Provide them with the pressure cookers. If they can reduce their cooking time from 1.5 hours to 10 minutes, you can save that much of a wood, right? So, and that would be much easier to adopt for the rural population or the woman, because, there's safety hazards also, you have this battery, you have all this coming up and all that, when you put solar and everything for a daily use, when you're using it for cooking and all that, right? So you have to understand the safety aspect of it also. So, pressure cooker could be a good solution, you can cut the cooking time by 60, 70%. And probably you can save a lot of environmental benefit and you can make life more easier and all that. Instead of spending 6 hours in the kitchen, they can be done in 1 hour and they have the food ready, right? तो आजकल तो आपके घर के cook भी जब तक pressure cooker ना they don't want to work, right? So it has been adopted. Previously, our mothers used to cook for hours in the kitchen, right? So I think these are some of the things from my point of view which we need to take and which we need to take into consideration and change our energy landscape. And look at the projects where it can make a lot of sense. There's a lot of potential in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa of idle, but the problem is whenever it goes into the grid, then the problem of grid comes into. So that's why I'm saying look at the out of the grid solutions about this, water tower generating the biomass, the pressure cookers, the conversion to EV. They are not there'll be a direct saving for you and for the country also. So that's pretty much I have to say. Thank you very much for the time and a very useful information you have shared. And please, if there's anything else I can add, most welcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Irfan. Some again extremely pertinent points, and I fully agree. I mean, during this transition period, the hybrid solutions that you mentioned, I mean, of all the points, is again going to be really, really important. With this, let me come to Dr. Rehab. Dr. Rehab, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, if the clean cooking is concerned, I think you have been working on it very, very extensively for quite some years, working with different research around the MEX as well. So just 2 points. One thing I think you've already mentioned. Firstly, if you have any reflections on what has been discussed as of as of now, and because you've already mentioned that there are some of the myths that needs to be busted. And secondly, for this discussion, Dr. Hab, I mean, just to mention that e-cooking is also discussed mainly as a way to kind of also balance the grid and the some of the, in the morning, we have been discussing a lot of capacity payment issues. So that is also where shift from the gas as well as other sources towards electricity that could add value. So, I mean, that's one angle. Then you have also worked a lot around the gender as well as the gender in this element. What's kind of missing about women's sexual experiences of cooking and energy use if we look at it this way. So if you want to respond on these points at the start, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ubaid. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So I have at least 3-4 pages of comments. Thank you so much, Saira, for sharing the e-cookbook with me yesterday. So I've read it thoroughly, and I have a lot to say, but I think maybe I can actually give you written comments because I think there's a lot that we can do. This is a very good starting point, I think, but I think it can be strengthened quite a lot. So let me just say that the Modern Energy Cooking Services program that we've been hearing about is a 10-year UK aid-funded program, which is now in its 8th year of research. And over the past 8 years, it has done substantial research to bust some of the myths and the uncertainties around electric cooking that Irfan Saab just mentioned, and that all of us, I think, have questions about. It has, through its research, its hands-on, practical, on-ground research, it has been able to work with local partners across 20 countries in Africa and Asia, and it has done substantial work to make impactful changes to policy, working with local governments and with the ministries of energy in a number of African countries, because of which we see a lot has happened and a strong transition towards not just clean cooking, but electric cooking in Africa and in some other parts of Asia, particularly in India and Nepal. So Pakistan, unfortunately, is a bit behind the race in clean cooking and especially in electric cooking. But I think because of that, we have a lot that we can learn from and already existing projects and programs that we can make use of. Now, for the e-cookbook specifically and the study itself, as I said, I think it's a very good starting point and there's a lot to comment there. But I think one of the things that you need to really think about, as has been already said, is the audience for this particular document. And if it's meant as a policy-facing document, then it needs to very clearly make the case for electric cooking, addressing the issues of electricity access, addressing infrastructure constraints, addressing cost constraints and affordability issues, and the rural and urban divides as well. And some of the things that perhaps we can take forward in this work is to move beyond the focus on electricity versus other fuels and really talk about the wide variety of electrical technologies and appliances that are now available. So as Irfan Saab also mentioned, and it has already been said, so induction was a very good starting point, and I think it has been proven in Bangladesh, in studies in India, that induction within the electrical appliances, it is the most compatible, it is the most preferred, perhaps not the most preferred, but the most compatible with our local cuisine. But throughout our studies, we've seen that electric pressure cookers often perform the best when it comes to energy savings, time savings, and cost savings. They are 100% compatible with the cuisines in Africa, but in Asia and South Asia, we do find that because our food, our cuisine is so roti-based, so that becomes a key sort of compatibility issue with electric cooking. And even with induction, we've seen that there are certain compatibility constraints. But having said that, there's a lot of innovation happening in the field. And so we now have electric roti makers coming in the market. And so the first thing is really to understand the huge variety of electrical appliances that are available, their compatibility with local cuisines, as in addition to their electricity costs, time comparisons, and then really working out what dish will work best with what appliance so that we can get the most of the electric transition and that it has to offer. So that's one thing. The second is the fuel comparison that you've made. I agree with Irfan Saab that I think we need to bring in a bit more detail and clarity to that. Because when we are comparing with firewood, not only is there's difference between purchased firewood and firewood that is collected for free in a lot of our rural areas, but also understanding the stove use with the firewood. So you've already mentioned that the clay stove is the most common, the 3-stone firewood, as well as the improved biomass cook stoves, which have been promoted by the development sector for quite a long time, will all have different performances and different energy and cost savings. So it's important to differentiate between them and have a clear comparison between all of these different choices so that policymakers are really able to see what benefit electric cooking will be able to make. And I would recommend highly doing the same with electrical appliances. So our research in Bangladesh has shown that, for example, electric pressure cookers are often preferred for their automation, for their time savings, but induction and infrared are often more preferable because they are better suited to local cuisines. And so having that range of appliances makes it makes for a better study and for the policy-facing element as well. The affordability issue, I think, is again something that we really need to tackle because in your cookbook, for instance, you have compared the cost per meal. And so you're taking account of the running cost of electricity, which is a good starting point. But again, it gives a very incomplete picture of cost and affordability because, again, if you look at some of the MEX research on affordability, there are 3 elements of affordability that must be considered. The upfront cost of the appliance and the cookware, the running cost of the fuel and the electricity, and then the timing of the payment as well. And this becomes especially important in rural contexts where income can often be seasonal and irregular. And so even if electric cooking is a cheaper per meal option, if the appliance is not available, it's too expensive, if the electricity is too expensive, then you're just not coming up with an affordable solution, right? Now, in relation to your question around gender, as I'm the only woman on this panel, I feel like there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. And I think the first thing to say is that we just need more women, not only in the research, but also in the decision making in roundtables like this, so that women who are doing the cooking can actually better inform what our needs are, what the practices are that shape cooking, how they can transition. And because it's not just a technology transition, we have to understand that any transition related to energy and technologies is also a social transition, right? So we have to understand the social realities within which this clean cooking transition can actually take place. So a lot of the lessons that we can learn from this are pertinent to broader energy transitions as well. So we know that cooking is very much gendered, it's time bound, it's socially embedded in our everyday practices. So the question is not just whether cooking can create useful electricity demand, while the grid balancing question is important, it is urgent. But as I said, the question is whether electric cooking can fit into women's everyday household practices, into our cultural food practices, into our current budgets, into our current kitchens and decision-making constraints as well. And you can see that this is the kind of research that MEX has done and answered in the past 8 years. So our cooking diaries methodology links measured energy use with real world cooking practices and lived experiences to demonstrate what people cook, how they cook it, when they cook it, for how many people, which fuels they stack, what happens during outages, how compatible appliances and cookware is, whether roti can actually be made on an e-cook stove, and whether women feel safe, confident, and in control while cooking, in addition to how much energy and cost is actually taken up. Now, in Pakistan, energy policies often remain gender neutral in language and become gender biased in outcome. And my own research in Pakistan's domestic energy sector has found that women's distinct energy needs and domestic practices remain marginalized because policy tends to focus on the top-down access, supply, and efficiency debates while overlooking how energy demand is actually produced through unpaid care work, through household dynamics, social norms, affordability, and infrastructure reliability. And so there are very practical implications here. For example, in the KPK e-cookbook, as you've already mentioned, if roti cannot be made on induction, we can't get the same pulka with the air pocket as we do in the LPG and the wood stove, then it poses a challenge. And so we have to come up with the right technology innovation to ensure that the local cuisine can be made, but it's also has to do with the learning curve. So I don't know whether your cooks, the professional cooks that you hired to do this study, whether they actually got training. Any new technology comes with a learning curve, and we've seen this with electric cooking technologies. But I would also say that as much as there is a knowledge curve, what we've also seen consistently throughout our research in Africa, in Asia, in contexts such as the Rohingya refugee camps as well, was that people are very much willing to take on much more efficient and safer solutions. And so they are very much, they're very willing to learn. And actually the learning curve hasn't been a problem for us. The problem is the cost constraints, the upfront cost of the appliances, or the reliability of the electricity to ensure that they can cook during the time, when they want to. So yes, there is a learning curve, but I think it can be very easily overcome. This is what our research shows. Now, from my previous research interviews as well, we know that in KPK and in Gilgit-Baltistan, households often cook larger flatbreads and larger quantities because of joint family systems. And so when we talk about developing the market, we have to develop the right supply chain for the right appliances. And one of the things that we've seen consistently is that electric cooking appliances often do not have compatible pot sizes and cookware. With induction, of course, you need to have iron-based cookware, which often is not compatible or not readily available. And so because of the joint family system and larger family sizes that we have in Pakistan, we really have to think about developing appliances and technologies that are custom designed to meet the cooking needs of the Pakistani people. And this is exactly the kind of detail that a grid-centered approach would miss out on. And so for studies like this one, I would suggest 4 sort of improvements or key recommendations. First, studying e-cooking from the kitchen outwards, not from the grid downwards. This means speaking directly to the women who actually cook the food and documenting everyday cooking routines through cooking diaries, through interviews and observations, and really bringing women onto the table. Secondly, we really have to understand the variety of appliances and technologies that electric cooking now offers to us. Because what we've seen is that it is very rare to see that one stove or one fuel is going to solve the whole cooking crisis and the transition from biomass-based cooking. Different dishes need different solutions. And as I've mentioned, so induction or hot plates are often found to be more compatible with curries. We have kettles for tea. Electric pressure cookers are found to be best for meat, pulses for hard boiling cooking, and rice cookers for rice. And now perhaps we need innovations in electric roti makers as well. And so the question should be, what appliance is the most compatible for which dish, not simply whether electricity is cheaper than LPG or wood. Number 3, we need to understand fuel stacking properly. So again, our studies across Asia and Africa show that households continue to use multiple fuels. They use wood, LPG, charcoal, electricity, and a range of fuels for different foods during different seasons, different events, and during moments of uncertainty. And so this shouldn't be treated as a failure. It should simply be understood as a rational response to risk, reliability, cost, taste, time, and social expectations. And so what we need is a multi-fuel clean cooking strategy that is place-based and custom designed to local cuisines. And finally, as I already mentioned, we need to understand affordability much more broadly, not just dish level cost comparisons, but actually understanding affordability of appliances, of cookware, of repair and maintenance costs and services, of electricity tariffs, as well as the infrastructure constraints when voltage is unstable, when there is load shedding. And of course, we have to understand the gender dynamics that are involved in cooking, in purchase decisions and in general decision making around what is cooked, how it's cooked, when it's cooked, and so on. And so, yes, electric cooking can certainly support the grid, but it will only be socially sustainable if it also supports women's labor, health, time, safety, and dignity. And I think from a policy facing perspective, what needs to be done is to come up with an effective energy delivery model and combine it with a sustainable business model. So you need to have the right financing options integrated into this so that it's not just upper class people who are able to afford electric cooking. So this has to be combined with targeted subsidies, on-bill financing, pay-as-you-go options, electric cooking tariffs specifically, and of course, making the most of carbon financing, which is now an up-and-coming option, especially within the development and international financing sector. So I'll stop here. But yes,
Perfect.
I'm happy to send you lots of comments.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
would be very happy to collaborate with you on getting this e-cookbook to a point where it can really act as the policy document for providing information to policymakers on electric cooking.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Rehab, for such a comprehensive response. And yeah, I think I'll just very briefly respond to a few of those. So basically, in the project, there are three different documents and three different policy, three different documents or reports that are prepared. So basically, the e-cookbook, the audience as well as the idea of e-cookbook is that this is a document that is for the people. This is a document that is mainly for the communities, and hence we've actually translated it on in the community language Pashto as well. But the way it is framed, it is not for the policymakers. It is more for the communities or people who are kind of trying to understand how to actually if they want to kind of initiate the clean cooking process or e-cooking process, how to actually go about it and provide some of the numbers and how it's going to kind of make the economic sense over the year. The second document that is more policy oriented or that kind of provides some suggestions to the policymakers is the technical report that we've actually developed along with this e-cookbook. What I'm going to do is also kind of request to Saira to also share that with you. But definitely the suggestions you have mentioned are extremely important, and we'll make sure we incorporate your suggestions within. And also, I really like the idea that you kind of mentioned about that also having not just mention the running cost, but also perhaps hinting what the cost of total capital expenditure is, because that kind of eventually would go provide a better idea, especially when we're considering the payback period or what the overall financial picture for a household would look like. So that's again really interesting thing, and I will definitely bring that in. So that is the technical document that provides a more detailed view to the speakers. Now, secondly, I think the market angle was, thank you so much, Rehab, for again bringing that. And that's, I think, the next step going forward for both SDPA as well as, again, we've already discussed this with the both the SCAP as well as the colleagues from NICA as well, that we are going to kind of develop this market transformation roadmap that eventually in the first step is going to provide a very detailed picture of how the market in Pakistan as of now actually looks like, what appliances are there, what products are there. So that's definitely, thank you for pointing out that it needs to be the step 2, and this is already something that we're going to do. So that indeed is the next step, and definitely Dr. Rehab will reach out to you once it goes as a way forward as well. And again, indeed, very important recommendations that you have already mentioned. We've also been exploring the end of the delivery models. We have actually been working on a couple, which will also kind of share with you. So let me perhaps just for very briefly stop here and let me see if this participant sitting over here have anything to add or respond to any practices, or because we do have colleagues who are part of this overall process. We do have people who belong to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So if anyone wants to add anything at this point. Perhaps. Sarah, anything? Sure. Jay, Sarah, please go.
I'll just like to add a short point, or maybe one of the key observation that I have had during my visit to the households when I was collecting the clean cooking diaries. I feel that there is a lack of efficient access to energy, or the cheaper energy. As during my visit to households, the women sounded very excited to uptake this e-cooking technology or e-cook stoves completely. But their major issue or concern was if we would have the solar installed in their houses, we would like to use this technology like in routine for a routine cooking purpose. So I think this is a plus point to see this kind of enthusiasm among women to uptake this technology, and if these limitations were not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sarah, let me see if Dr. Jamshed, do you want to add anything in response to the further discussions, or any of the points that both Irfan Siddiqui Saab has mentioned, or Dr. Rehab has also highlighted? So if there is anything, any point from your end as well.
Acha ji, I would like to add to the discussion of Irfan Saab. As you mentioned, like we need to provide them a full-fledged solution. So, you know, even if we look into the solar boom or solar system in Pakistan, only I think 6 to 7,000 megawatt is integrated like through green meters, but the rest are on solar rooftop. They're using both like from the grid and from the solar system as well. So the same approach can be followed for the clean cooking and e-cooking as well. Like as Rehab also mentioned, that we can use a blend of approaches. Like we can also aid the e-cooking to the energy mix of a household. So there is nothing, you know, this is not a challenge. The entry should not be considered as a challenge if we cannot provide like a full-fledged solution of e-cooking to everyone. And along with this, the second important thing is that Irfan Saab also mentioned about the retrofit. So that's important, and I would like to discuss this much more with Irfan Saab, particularly in person, that how we can, like from NICA perspective, we are also considering retrofit of two-wheelers and three-wheelers itself. So we would like to collaborate with the team of Irfan Saab. And another thing which like the behavior change, the behavior change constraint were highlighted. So if we look at like the behavior change, the economics, you know, driving the behavior. For example, if we go back and KPK 10-year back, telephone or, you know, the cell phone with this touch screen was considered not as a, you know, socially acceptable thing for females. Okay, but now everyone is using that. So, you know, economies of scale will, you know, driving the market rather than, you know, the behavioral is not something static, the market will driving it. So if with STPI, we can design some sort of roadmap or framework where we can, you know, bring in the ADB and the financing mechanism from ADB to at least start a pilot project in KPR Balochistan, the vulnerable area, where access to clean cooking is really, you know, low. So this can be, you know, a good start, and then we can consider it scalability in other provinces as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamshed. Let me see if Irfan Saab wants to add any last points. Please.
Dr. Saab, I will definitely, you know, you can get my contact. We can work on AV conversion. और बाकी जो डॉक्टर साहिबा ने बातें की, आई थिंक दे आर वेरी रेलेवेंट। एक चीज़ मैं शायद कहना भूल गया था, हमारा जो डिफरेंट कंट्रीज से, फार ईस्टर्न कंट्रीज से कंपैरिजन था, वो उनकी रेसिपीज या फूड इज लिटिल बिट डिफरेंट। नूडल्स बना लिए, स्टर फ्राई कर लिया, इट डजंट टेक मच टाइम एंड डजंट टेक मच एनर्जी, राइट? इट्स वेरी क्विक फिक्स। हमारे यहाँ जब तक अंटिल यू 1 घंटे तक भूनेंगे नहीं तो सालन नहीं बनेगा। सो दैट इज व्हाई द एनर्जी नीड्स एंड एवरीथिंग्स आर वेरी डिफरेंट। तो वो थोड़ा सा एप्पल टू, इट्स नॉट अ रियली एप्पल टू एप्पल कंपैरिजन, बट अगेन देयर आर लॉट ऑफ हिस्ट्री दैट डॉक्टर साहब, इट कैन बी मल्टीपल resources which can be used and all that. No, I think very valuable discussion. All the points are covered from my side. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Irfan Sir. Before I come to Dr. Shafkat for the final concluding and vote of thanks, let me see if Anis, or we also have Fatia with us from SCAP. If Anis, you would like to say any few last words or any takeaways from your end before we go to the final discussion.
Sure. Thanks, Subhaid. I'll be very quick. So, I've been listening from the morning session, and it has been really a productive discussion on both important topics. So we started with repurposing of coal-fired power plants in the morning, and then in the afternoon we took over scaling clean cooking in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. This topic, as I'm working with you directly, Ubaid, and your team, this is very important. And I was amazed to see all the very quality discussions and the very productive kind of recommendation and suggestions have been forwarded. And what I can say that we have been really provided with wealth of knowledge by all speakers on the challenges and opportunities on implementing these kind of initiatives. While we understand that the implementation of these initiatives are not going to happen overnight, and we won't be seeing any enabling policies developed in a shorter time period. But what we are trying to do here is to really bring policymakers and other stakeholders together to discuss these topics. And the outcome of these discussions probably will produce some information that might be helpful for the government to make some informed policy decision. So on behalf of SCAP, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers and participants in engaging in the discussion and sharing your thoughts and all these suggestions and recommendations. Really appreciate them. I would also like to thank both the teams who worked on these two pieces of work and contributed their skills and expertise in undertaking these activities, as well as producing very high quality products, I would say. And I understand that some products, some reports will need to go through some review process, but they have been quite good quality. Our sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. Khalid Walid for his excellent leadership in leading both these pieces of work. Finally, I would like to thank SDPI as a whole for supporting this work and being a long collaborator of SCAP. I know that over the years, jointly we have produced very high quality works on multiple fronts, and we'll also look forward to continue this collaboration. So with this, Zubaid, I will stop here and thank you everyone for joining this session today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anis, for your interventions, for your recommendations. So with this, and again, let me also thank all the speakers from mine, but with this, I'll come to Dr. Shafkat Munir, Deputy Executive Director at SDPI, for his final concluding and the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ubaid. Thank you, Anis Saab, Irfan Saab, and all other speakers. I have not heard all other speakers, but I know the work our team has done with the support of UNESCAP. Thank you, Anis Bhai, and all SCAP team for providing us support for these two really important pieces of researches. One is for the consumers or the direct those who can benefit from it in terms of e-cookbook, and the second one is for policymakers. The topic is very important and very much linked to both policy and practitioners. So before that, Dr. Irfan's last point reminded me of my time when I used to work in the UNESCAP building, like Anis Sab is sitting now, and I was living in the vicinity in Bangkok, where of course only cooking things were electrical. So, I just want to make it a brief, which is an interesting thing. The apartment was of a Thai doctor. So anyway, we were living there or cooked and had our time there. But when I was leaving the apartment, she gave me an additional bill of 3,000 baht. I said, what is that? I have paid my company, my office has paid everything. No, you have cooked it and cooked it heavily. So I have to clear the smoke and other thing and smells of your,
And the grease.
So I paid extra. And what Dr. Saab said, it is right that it is our habit that we have a different kind of thing. But still, we have to change our habits also. So that's not the issue of only consumption or transforming into a new mode of energy. It is we have to go to new mode of otherwise life energy, which we are not actually accepting. So that reminds us that if we do not want to change, then certainly environment will keep us pushing towards what we are seeing now. Heat waves, you have seen last 3-4 days, you have seen it. And you have seen it that during the conflict, thank God our government policy and other, they did not let us down because petrol and all fossil fuel were available. But look at those who were not having it. I would quote here the example of Nepal, where all the fossil fuels come through tankers. Like our tanker supplies from within the country. Storage is in our country, but their storage is in India. When there is any trouble, I have seen long queues for motorcycles and bikes and taxis to get the fuel. And then they had their own alternate thing. 30 years back, I know Nepalese were using the solar panels. Hotels were using it, houses, and even in villages, houses were using it for their warming the water, particularly electricity need, and other small gadgets they were using for cooking. When Nepalis can do for the last 30 years, why cannot we change our thing? The issue is that there is no prioritization in our life. We think things are going on and it will keep going on. That's not the case. That is why we don't want to change. Now, at least with this cookbook idea that can tell us what to cook where, on which gadget. So that awareness is important. And ultimately, the way we are going now, the alternate energy would be our major source. Otherwise, fossil fuels are not only in terms of costly energy, they are costing otherwise our environment, costing our lives, costing everything, the fossil fuel. But we have to get rid of it. That is gradually, and we have rightly used the coin here, repurposing of coal. When we give commitment NDC 2, last NDC, that we will phase out coal without thinking that we have huge reserves of coal with us, and others are not committing that we will go net zero by 2050. We were there, but later on it realized that we have coal. Of course we have, but still it is a kind of a bargain at our health, our energy needs, and the resources we have. Otherwise, straight away, whatever advocacy we do, it cannot be easy to say that these things would be repurposed immediately. But at least we have a realization, we have a study based on which we can say repurposing of coal is important, and this is the right time that we started now. Immediately, you cannot, all coal-fired power plants, you cannot immediately switch on or off. Even in the crisis, Germany restarted it. But at least gradually, we have to have a policy transformation that we have to go or repurpose our coal consumption. at the energy is top level, which is a big consuming part. The second is home cooking and home consumption of coal. So that we can reduce at least starting from one point. So in both ways, these studies would be helpful in future. And I thank you all our research team, those who have produced it. And we can proudly say that we have not just produced research which is in the cupboard. It is for people. It is for policymakers. So people and policy go side by side. So with this hope that certainly this realization will continue and we will change our path towards a more greener and transparent, energy transition that is pro people and pro policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Shafkat and everyone for joining us. As soon as the documents are revised and we have the final version in a week, we'll be sharing all of the 3 documents with everyone. And please do read out. Some of those are really interesting stories, particularly mentioned in the Clean Cooking Diaries. And you can see, even hear direct experiences of how the people faced these different challenges while using different type of fuel. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, and Khuda Hafiz. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.